Good day, colleagues. Today we have another session of organic chemistry. Today we are tackling organic reactions. Now remember, learners, in organic reactions you can get a lot of marks, but you need to make sure that you know all your reactions and all your reaction conditions. This actually almost takes all parts of organic chemistry in one. Now let us have a look at the definitions that you need to know. The first definition that you need to know in organic chemistry, in organic reactions specifically, substitution reaction. Now, a substitution reaction is a reaction in which an atom or a group of atoms in a molecule is replaced by another atom or a group of atoms, as you'll see when we do our reactions. And then in elimination reaction, a reaction in which elements of the starting material are lost and a double bond is formed. So in an elimination reaction, one or two, in most cases, two elements will be lost, and then a double bond will be formed. And then we have an addition reaction. It is a reaction in which a double bond in the starting material is broken and the elements are added to it. So in an addition reaction, a double bond is going to be broken and there will be space where elements will be added. Two elements will be added. Then halogenation, the reaction of a compound with a halogen. Remember, halogens are group 7 elements and they are diatomic molecules. And then cracking, it is the breakup of molecules with a large molecular mass into molecules with smaller molecular masses. And then we have hydrogenation. It is the addition of hydrogen to a molecule. And then hydrohalogenation. That term you can break down into two. We have the first part of hydro and then the second part of halogenation. It means it is the addition of hydro part is hydrogen and then a halogen, which is called a hydrogen halide. And then hydration is the addition of water to a molecule. Dehydrohalogenation, every time when you see D something, it means it is an elimination reaction, so something is going to be removed. Now it's dehydrohalogenation, it means a hydrogen and a halogen are lost from a molecule. And then dehydration, it is the removal of water. And then the last one is esterification, when this is the preparation of an ester from a reaction of a carboxylic acid with an alcohol and should form 4 bonds. Now, let us take a little break for about 10 minutes and then we'll meet again after 10 minutes.